On this week's episode of Surf Studio, we take a look at the Coolangatta Gold, the most challenging endurance race in surf sports. With the event unable to take place in 2020 and the Virtual Coolangatta Gold in full swing, we talk to 3 competitors who have taken part in multiple Coolangatta Golds over the years. First up, we chat with Guy Leech, who won the inaugural Coolangatta Gold in 1984 and again the following year. We chat with Tian Smith, from the famous Smith surf sports family, about her 14-year journey from handler in 2006 to playing a pivotal role for women, being able to compete in the long course, something she has done 8 times. And finally, we chat to Tasmanian veteran Coolangatta Gold competitor Don Marsh, who has made the inaugural pilgrimage to the Gold Coast to compete in the iconic event almost every year since 2008.
Welcome back to Surf Studio today on the Coolangatta Gold special edition. We're joined by the man that is the most synonymous with the Coolangatta Gold, winning the race in 84 and 85, Guy Leech. Thanks for joining us.
How are you? You good? Very good,
very good. Let's start off by going back to the early days, 1984, getting off that plane. I believe it was in the heat of summer. You're a 19-year-old kid from Manly. Tell us a bit about that first experience with the Coolangatta Gold leading into and during 84.
I think people don't realise that I joined the surf club very late. I was in a swimming squad with Craig Riddington and a number of other very well-known swimmers that were all going for Olympic Games. And our swimming coach at the time, Terry Gathercole, he was the head coach of the Australian swim team. And he had these rules where if you're going for the Olympic Games, then you weren't allowed to be in a surf club, because his opinion was that if you're a freestyler or did freestyle in any of your events, it would ruin your stroke. Mate, I never did nippers. I never did any junior stuff at all. And so I was at home with the family watching television after dinner, after swimming training one night. And it was when Grant Kenny first got signed up to Kellogg's Nutrigrain, and he came on the screen, you know, bouncing out of the water, all muscular and fit, tanned, and, you know, smashing his ski through the break, and it was all happy days with what he was doing in the water. And then he, you know, turned to the camera with the Kellogg's Nutrigrain, you know, bowl and said, "Tastes great, stays crunchy." And I thought, I'm doing that. Seriously, like it was like this momentous moment in where I went, now screw the Olympics. This thing looks awesome. And I knew Riddo was sort of playing around in that space with, you know, in the juniors, but it was Grant Kenny that just captured my imagination. So I said to my mum, I want to join the surf club. And that was obviously a really awkward conversation with the swimming coach, because, mate, if you want to go for the Olympics, you're not joining the surf club. Because I sort of said, I'm out if I don't, you know. And so they let me do it. And I kept swimming another year for the Olympics. But I started mucking around on the ski and board. So fast forward at the age of 17, less than 2 years, 18 months. So I'd never been on a ski before, never surfed, never done any of that stuff. And there was a poster turned up at the surf club down at Manly, like it did all the other surf clubs and overseas, to do with the Coolangatta Gold. It's a 46-kilometre race on the Gold Coast. You know, you run, you swim, you paddle. And if you win it, you win 20 grand's worth of gold. Right? And I'm like, holy hell. You know, we trained for 6 months. No one knew how to train for it. I mean, I based my Ironman training on swimming philosophies and what you did in the pool with a warm-up and a main set and warm down, all that sort of thing that you learn from your coaches. We put that into practice with the other training for the other disciplines for the Coolangatta Gold. So anyway, mate, I rocked up to the Gold Coast probably 5 or 6 days before the race with Riddo and a bunch of other guys. And the first thing I noticed was I got off the plane. I'd never been to Queensland before. Right? I'm a Sydney boy, never been to Queensland. It was just the sheer heat. In January in 84, it was like 35 degrees, really humid. And I was like, my God, how are we going to get from surface to Coolangatta and back in this sort of heat? And so it was, you know, I turned up, mate, with no clue that I could win it, with no desire to do anything other than get through the race, do my best and not embarrass myself. And I remember rocking up to the briefing a day before the event, and there were 100 athletes, 100 blokes in that room when they're going through the briefing. And I was looking around going, how muscly and how impressive are some of these physiques in the room. And, we know now, how you look doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go fast as an Ironman, right? But, mate, when you're 19 years of age, you've got no background in this sport whatsoever. And you're looking at these blokes that are 6'4" and 95 kilos and ripped to the crapper, then you are intimidated. And that's what it was like. So I remember rocking up the morning of the race, and the sheer numbers of people that were there to watch it, the crowd, was something that to this day has never been seen again. With what happened with the machine, the marketing machine that just promoted this damn race prior to it. To give you an example, I counted 15 helicopters in the air when I was trying to paddle back from Coolangatta to Surfers Paradise with a 2-minute lead on the field in the air filming this race. So there were media from overseas, local media, the film crew filming the race to cut into the movie. We're all out there in helicopters doing their best. And when you rocked into any beach, there were 5,000 people as you come out of the water, just there, screaming at you as you went through the race. So it was really weird. They reckon there was 200,000 people on the coast watching it. Right? It felt like 2 million. It was that many. You couldn't, when I got to the finish line in front, the only reason I knew where the finish line was because you couldn't see sand. There was just this laneway gap of a strip of sand, like a laneway, where you ran to. I couldn't even tell where the finish line was, other than the fact that I couldn't go there because there was people there. It was the only spot to go in. So it was a really weird day. And if you say you had an Ironman career of 15 years after that, no day ever represented anything like that given day, the Coolangatta Gold. I walked onto the beach, not known. I was 40-1. They had odds on who was going to win, and you could put money on it. I was 40-1. I was like an outside chance. The only people that thought I had a chance was the guys in Manly Circuit Club who saw what I did in training leading into it. But I'd never won an Ironman race before because I'd never done it really before. And the irony is that I walked off the beach 4.5 hours later, went out with the boys that night, got drunk, woke up the next morning with a hangover, and I went from being not known in the country to being one of the most famous people at that time in Australia. So it was a really weird situation to go through.
And how did you ride that roller coaster for the next few years, I suppose, when you're still really young, and you came back and won the event again in 85? And what a lot of people don't know is the event in those days went from Surfers Paradise to Coolangatta and back, not the other way like it does now. And the ski leg was the last leg, not the other way around. But how did you deal with that, I suppose, that fame that you sort of got overnight?
I win this race, mate. I've done no time in the sport at all. I was just really good at endurance. And, my background in the pool and the fact that I could run naturally, having never been a runner, but found out on that given day that I was a good runner, and I could handle pain and heat better than most. I walked away from the beach going, how the hell did I win it? I've now got 20 grand's worth of gold. Everyone keeps pointing at me and looking at me. It was really weird. And I walked away from the race going, how am I going to back this thing up? In some ways, I had the advantage over the field because I knew what it was like to win the race. I understood how to race it smarter because I had a year of changing my training to make it suit the event more. And what they did do, they flipped the course to being the 11-kilometre run leg, being the last leg the following year in 85. That played to my strength. It played to my strength because I was a good natural runner over distance, but I was even a better runner when I was tired. When the field was tired against me, I didn't run much slower than when I was fresh. And because of that, I sort of knew that if I could get to that last run leg, being 11 kilometres from the finish line, anywhere near the leaders or in front or even a minute down on anyone, I was going to run them down. I just knew that from the next year's training. But the issue was this. I'd never felt the pressure going into any race I ever did during my whole career as much as I did the second year because the media banged on about it's Grant Kenny versus Guy Leech. We're on the front page of papers leading into it, doing arm wrestles. Mate, they were all like, we had to go and snarl at each other for photos. And it was like, who is the best Ironman? Who's the greatest endurance athlete in the country? Grant Kenny's doing the Coolangatta Gold for the first time. He's a megastar in Australian sport. Mate, I'd never felt that sort of pressure before. So I had to deal with that. And it was a really weird situation in that the night before the race, I could barely sleep. I was that nervous. I didn't want to race deep down. I was just scared. And I went into the race and I won it by 5 minutes the second year. But I won it by 5 minutes because I prepared better than anyone else. And I knew how to win a race better than anyone else. But I didn't enjoy the journey. It wasn't fun because I was racing scared the whole time and didn't feel powerful and strong like I did the first year. So I had to deal with that because I went away from it going, you know what, if you want to do this as a living and you want to do this as something that you're going to do moving forward, you've got to work out in your head how you deal with that sort of pressure and how you can turn that into a good experience, not into something that you're scared of. So it was a really interesting time for me.
Hi there and welcome to Surf Studio. Very excited today to bring you a chat with Tian Smith from the legendary Smith family. Tian, I've got my special Coolangatta Gold backdrop up here just for you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to answering some of your questions.
Tian, you've been in lifesaving since you were 5 years old. Take us all the way back to Cronulla. What was it like growing up down there?
I was okay as a nipper. Crystal was the standout and Nathan just plodded along. We just had fun. It was, nippers was all about fun. It still is, so it's just about developing your skills. My whole life would probably be different if mum didn't get us involved in nippers. Like, I don't know what would have happened. We still probably would have been around the beach, but, our whole family's been so involved. We've travelled around the world. We've met some amazing people. I have lifelong friends because of being in nippers. So, it's just a great association to be a part of.
It's a little bit different this year. We're not running the Coolangatta Gold as we know it. And you've just been such a huge part of this event since it restarted in the 2000s.
I wouldn't say I'm a huge part of it. I have taken part of a huge part of the races. So this year will be number 13. And yeah, I think I just started back as a handler for my sister, and was inspired by the people that were going around, the competitors that were doing it. So, and I wanted to have a crack, and here I am 13 years later, still going around. So I guess it's a little bit disappointing that it didn't go ahead this year. But, everyone has the opportunity to go out and still do the distances, which makes it great as well.
So you'd raced the short course in the past. You wanted to take on the long course challenge, but it wasn't a category that was available. So tell us how you got around that.
I really wanted the long course, and females couldn't do the long course at the time. I'd even asked and I kind of was unsuccessful. So for a few weeks I thought, okay, I'm not doing the long course, so I'm going to stick to the short course. And then I thought, no, this is a bit unfair. I've been in surf lifesaving since I was 5. I'd already done, numerous short courses and proved to, the association and to myself that I could go the distance. So I entered as a team event, asking my cousin to be the one participant in that team, and he was going to do the swim, and it was going to get to the point where I was going to get to that swim and he was either going to swim with me or he was just going to go, yep, keep going, and I was going to do the swim. So I entered as a team event, ended up doing the whole thing myself. I didn't come last. I know I definitely didn't come last in that team. So I was going against, obviously guys and girls and like maybe 4 in the team. So yeah, that's pretty much how I kind of got around it, to, I guess, do the first long course for myself. And then the next year, they brought in the long course for females.
And tell us, what did it feel like to cross the line knowing that you were the first woman to complete the long course, that you've proven, yes, to yourself that you can do it? It's such a tough race.
So that year I really stuck with my training. I hate swimming training, and I went swimming training quite regularly just to make sure that I could do the distance. And that race was probably one of the best or the second best long course races that I've ever done. The conditions were great on the day as well. So a few people knew I was doing it, people from the club, Obviously, you know, I had the support of my handlers. So it was great coming over the line. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm maybe a little bit better than, you know, your average Joe, but like I was kind of, you know, obviously grew up with my brother and sister, Nathan and Crystal, and they're just phenomenal athletes, and they've got so much ability. I just like look at them and go, oh, I can have a little bit of that. But I think for me, it was special because I knew I put in the work, and it was a goal that I wanted and a goal that I had gone for, and I achieved it. So it kind of felt special. I'm not at least going to stop till I get to 15, because I can't stop at 13. Such a weird number. I can't stop at 14. So 15 at least has to be, yeah, that's my aim, I guess. It kind of, it got to, my goal was to finish the short course, then it was to win my age group, and then it was to do the long course, and then it was to better my time in the long course, and then it got to the point where I wanted to do 10, and then I just kept going.
Thinking back to that first long course race, obviously the ladies weren't able to compete over that distance. You must feel really proud that you have played a pretty maybe unexpected or unplanned, but really pivotal role in advancing females in lifesaving and really, you know, making everything far more equitable.
Yeah, I guess when I did it at the time, I wasn't really doing it for that. Like, I knew it wasn't fair that they weren't letting me do it. And I had to do it as a team. And I knew, and it wasn't anything about that. I knew I was going to fail. I knew I was going to do it. I put in the training and I knew I was going to do it. It kind of, yeah, obviously it does feel special that I was the first female. And when it got put in for the next year that the females were going to do the long course and the prize money was going to be the same, you know, a lot of people were like, that's because of you. And I think, like, no, I don't think it was. I just wanted to do it. And I guess I did prove to them that, you know, females could do it. And I'm not a fast competitor. So it was like, well, if she can do it, then I guess, you know, all the other females can do it. So it was, I guess, a great way for the association to go, yeah, okay, it's doable. And, you know, we can up the prize money to be equal with the men's. You know, it's great now that they do get equal pay, and I'm all for them, the top professional women, because they're amazing. Like, I watch them at training, and we might do a paddle back, and it's like, and they're off, and I just see them going into the distance, and I'm like, and that's why you get paid the bucks. And I'm just like, yep, I'll just slog it out at the back. So, yeah.
Tiarne, thank you so much for taking a moment and sharing your story here today on Surf Studio. It has been so lovely to speak with you. We can't wait to see you in action for the Virtual Coolangatta Gold this year, and everything permitting, on your road to number 15 very, very soon.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks for having me. And yeah, if anyone's out there looking to you know, have that goal of doing the Coolangatta Gold, I go for it, because it's such a great event and you'll get so much out of it. So thanks for having me.
Welcome back to Surf Studio for the Coolangatta Gold special. Today I'm joined by Don Marsh, surf life saving Tasmania legend and Coolangatta Gold legend. Donnie, thanks for joining us.
Great to see you, Grant.
You were on the board of Surf Sports when the Coolangatta Gold got brought back in 2005, I think it was. Yep. Tell us a little about why that was important to bring that particular event back on the calendar.
Well, it always was an iconic event, and Surf Life Saving Australia, and I sat on that surf sports board, we were looking at ways of really developing surf sports in many, many ways, not just the Ironman racing, but ski racing, ocean swims and the like. And I think one of the greatest successes has been reintroducing the Coolangatta Gold. It's been now running, unfortunately this year it'll be virtual, but it's great feedback from what I'm hearing in numbers. It is an iconic event. The venues have changed over the years, and I think I've done most of them. The surfers to Coolangatta and back again, and that was pretty iconic. and the various other iterations of the courses. But look, I just think it is so important. It brings people at the beginning of summer to the Gold Coast. It gives a purpose for those, particularly in the southern states, and I'll talk about that in a moment from Tasmania's point of view, but brings them together at the right time of the year, you know, over an endurance course to really hone their skills. And that's what it's all about. We are lifesavers after all.
Your own journey with the Coolangatta Gold, since it's been brought back, I believe you've participated in every one except one when you're overseas since 2008. Tell us a little bit about what the race means to you and some of those journeys in your older, more mature. You said you're a late developer, more mature years.
Well, it was a goal I set myself when I retired from paid work, and I thought, no, that's something. I guess I always wanted to do it. I never had the opportunity in terms of my workload, etc. So I set that as a goal when I retired, and I've continued to do it. I just think it's a great event. And I think for more mature athletes, it's something that they can do. You don't get pounded by the surf in short course racing like you do. You've got the opportunity to get off the beach pretty clean and work your way through the event.
So how difficult is it to train and acclimatise yourself to get through the winter, to get up in the morning, because it's a very different temperature to what it is on the Sunshine Coast?
Mate, I've got to say, it's not as tough as what you think it is, because you paddle ski all year round. You're on top of the water. You've got the right sort of clothing. You know, you might have to pick. You wouldn't go out with a big southerly blowing unless you wanted to do a downwinder. A little bit harder on board. You know, you've got a wetsuit up, you know, and sometimes gloves and maybe a beanie. But running a course, you know, you dress up for that. And surprisingly, we got 50-metre indoor pools, which are heated, so we can do the swimming. The swimming in the ocean at this time of the year is pretty tough, even though in this COVID period, many of the ocean swimmers have swum all winter long, all the way through. And I give them a lot of credit because I don't. I'm looking forward to jumping in the ocean next week to do my swim leg of the Coolangatta Gold, and I'll probably be putting 2 silicone swim caps on.
Don, obviously one of the most important people in the Coolangatta Gold is the handlers. Tell us a little bit about the role of the handlers, and in your case, your dear wife that's contributed significantly as a handler over the years.
Yes, well, Jane has major contribution, I must say. I mean, the handlers have a tough job. They've got to chase you up and down the coast, trying to catch up, to feed you, to have drink, to have your shoes in the right spot, make sure they pick up your PFD and your paddle and don't forget anything, and to try and get those hard-fought parking spots. Of course, these days I only do the short course, so it's an out and back course. Makes it a little bit easier, but nevertheless still pretty tough. And of course, they're the ones that get picked on if things don't go right.
As has been the case with many things during 2019 with COVID-19, we've had to adjust, and running the virtual Coolangatta Gold for the first time is something where Surf Life Saving has been very proactive in adjusting. I believe there's around about 1,000 entries in the virtual Coolangatta Gold, and I believe there's been a really strong increase in the number of interest in Tasmania.
That's right. We've got 40 plus people who have signed up for the virtual Coolangatta Gold. Look, we would normally get 8 to 12 people travelling each year, and that comes at considerable cost too, by the way, and having to cross Bass Strait to drive up. And I guess one of the things I won't necessarily miss this year is the drive, the 3.5-day drive to the Gold Coast. What I will miss though is Kenny Bird's smiling face when I arrive there. But that's a great response from Tasmanians. Next Thursday in the south, we've got a show day holiday. So we're getting together to do as many of the events as possible. Look, in terms of the Tasmanians, a bit of disappointment for some of our younger competitors and even some of our older ones that haven't managed to get up there and do the race in full. And I should mention, over the years, we've had a lot of success, not just with our elite. I mentioned Matty Bev and Ali Britton, but Connor Polden, a year or two back, he took out the senior event, from Devonport. So we've had quite a history from Tasmania. So even though you say we might suffer down here over the winter, we make good.
Thanks for watching Surf Studio. We would encourage you to get in touch with us to send through ideas or stories for future episodes. Contact the team via our social media channels or email us at surfstudio@slsa.asn.au.